This one's a little bit harder to explain, but imagine that you're doing a roading corridor, um, and you don't just want to survey the road, you've obviously got a boundary around the road that you'd like to have surveyed as well, probably out to fence lines and maybe even a little bit beyond. As is the joy for drone capture, you can capture a little bit more for free. Now, in terms of ground control, there is a when you have a long, skinny corridor, it can behave in a very strange way, whereby if you have insufficient ground control, you can actually create errors that don't exist otherwise. So I've had a lot of people kind of come in and say, "Oh, we'll do this with our ground control, and we'll just bounce it on either side of the road, and we'll do something like that where we zigzag our control." I have had a problem there where the road actually ends up getting a twist on it that changes as you're going along the road, and that twist can get dramatically out of shape as well, much in the same way as if you've got insufficient ground control, you can get a Z error which builds from one end of the model to the other. So the rule of thumb for corridors is not to put single control, but to imagine pinning the sides of your site with ground control laid out in what is called a ladder. So you have a ladder of ground control, and that stops us having any problems with a barrel roll on our ground control. Obviously, you've got less overlap gains from having more and more ground control. Like this, a ground control over here might be nice to have for stabilizing the model, but it's not going to do anything because you're not going to fly over it. So you've obviously got to have your ground control set reasonably close. And from experience, I've worked out that 2.5 times the flight height, the height that you're flying at, is the spacing that you want both of these pairs of ground control points to be. Obviously, if your corridor is a lot wider than 2.5 times your flight height, then you should have some intermediate ground control as well. And let's not forget that as well as your ground control, you should be placing some checkpoints in amongst this so that you can confirm just exactly how accurate the model is that you have achieved. So, without ground control, your model will be potentially uncontrolled, it'll be waving around. Without checkpoints, you can actually be a confident supplier of data. Okay.